How do you teach a machine to see? I mean, not just register a bunch of pixels, but to actually understand a photo of a cat with the same kind of intuition that you do. That right there is one of the biggest puzzles in modern AI, and today we're going to crack it. Welcome to The Explainer. Grab your detective hat, because we are about to uncover the genius behind convolutional neural networks.
So, our first clue is a bit of a paradox. We've got these standard neural networks, right? They're incredibly powerful tools. They can master all sorts of complex data. But then you show one a simple picture and it just falls apart. It gets completely overwhelmed. So why does this brilliant piece of technology fail so spectacularly at something a toddler can do in a heartbeat?
Let's put some real numbers on this, because it's kind of mind-blowing. A single standard HD photo has millions of pixels. Now, a regular neural network tries to connect every single one of those pixels to the neurons in its very first layer. Think of it like a gigantic tangled switchboard. The number of connections, or parameters as we call them, that you'd need for just that first step explodes into the billions. It's not just a little inefficient. It's computationally absurd to even try to train it.
And this isn't just a hardware problem. It's not about needing a bigger computer. It's a fundamental learning problem. It's a statistical nightmare. With billions of parameters, the network is way too complex to learn anything meaningful from a reasonable amount of data. It's just like having a million detectives at a crime scene. You don't get a clear answer, you just get chaos and noise. The case goes cold before you even get started.
So how do we solve this impossible problem? Well, not with more power, but with more intelligence. We're going to follow the trail of 3 brilliant ideas that completely cracked the case. First, how to focus on what actually matters. Second, how to work way more efficiently. And third, the secret sauce to finding a clue no matter where it's hiding. Let's start the investigation.
All right, idea number 1, the magnifying glass. This is the breakthrough that changes the entire game. Instead of trying to stare at the whole picture at once, we're going to zoom way in.
The insight here is just beautiful in its simplicity. Stop trying to see everything all at once. Instead, we give a specialist detective, which we call a kernel, a magnifying glass. Its only job is to look for one specific thing, like a vertical line or a bit of texture, in a tiny little patch of the image. By ignoring everything else, it can do its one job incredibly well.
Now this strategy has a technical name, sparse interactions. Instead of every neuron connecting to every single pixel, each neuron now becomes a specialist. It's only responsible for a small, local patch of the input. This is its receptive field, and it lets the network find small, meaningful features, like the corner of an eye or the whisker on a cat, without getting distracted by the entire scene. And here you can really see the two philosophies side by side. On the left, you've got total chaos. On the right, it's elegant. This new convolutional approach is built on a really powerful assumption. In a picture, a pixel gets its meaning from its immediate neighbors. By focusing on these local relationships, we don't just cut down on complexity, we're actually building crucial, real-world knowledge right into the network's design. Okay, so we have our specialist detectives looking at small patches. That's a huge step forward. But, a big image is a big crime scene. Do we really need to train a separate detective just to find an edge in the top left corner, and then another one for the bottom right corner to find the exact same kind of edge? Well, this leads us to our second massive insight: efficiency through reuse. The answer is so simple, but it's really profound. Why would you ever hire a million different detectives to look for the exact same clue in different spots? That's just wasteful. It's so much smarter to hire one elite edge detector unit and just have that single specialist scan the entire scene, patch by patch, applying its expertise everywhere it goes. This is the game-changing principle right here. It's called parameter sharing. So instead of millions of different detectives, we train one perfect edge detector kernel. We put all of our effort into making it the best in the world. Then we take that single, highly trained kernel and have it scan the entire image. It's the ultimate learn once, apply everywhere philosophy.
And the effect this has on the model's complexity, it's just breathtaking. I mean, look at this chart. A fully connected network is a skyscraper of parameters. Our first idea, sparse interactions, brought that down to a small building. But parameter sharing, it shrinks the problem down to just a handful of parameters for each kernel. We've literally gone from computationally impossible to incredibly efficient.
Now this right here is the million-dollar takeaway. Parameter sharing gives the network a superpower. It doesn't care where a feature is anymore, only that it exists. The network learns what a cat's ear looks like one time, and then it can find that ear in the top corner, at the bottom corner, or right in the middle, all using the exact same knowledge.
This is the absolute foundation of how a CNN can generalize to new images.
So we have a local focus from sparse interactions, and we have reusable tools from parameter sharing. Our third big idea isn't really something new we add. It's this powerful property that just sort of emerges when we combine the first two. It's called translation equivariance, and it's the reason CNNs just feel so intuitive.
Okay, watch the slide closely. On the left, that's our input image. On the right is something called a feature map. Think of it as the network's internal report on where it found the cat. See that? As the cat moves in the input image, the bright spot of activity on the map moves with it, perfectly in sync. The network is literally tracking the object's location.
This lockstep behavior has a formal name, equivariance to translation. I know, it's a fancy term, but it means something really simple. If you move the input, the output moves in the exact same way. The network's report on what it found, a cat, doesn't change, it just updates its report on where it found it. And this is a direct, beautiful consequence of sharing our parameters.
Now, let's nail down a really common point of confusion, equivariance versus invariance. Invariance is what we want at the very, very end. We want to be able to say, yes, there is a cat in this image, and we don't care where it is. But during all the processing steps, we need equivariance. It preserves that where information, which is absolutely critical for understanding the scene structure before we make our final decision.
So, we've gathered our clues. We have local focus, reusable tools, and the equivariance that comes from them. Now it's time to put it all together. We're going to move from theory to practice and build a fundamental engine of every single CNN, the convolutional layer assembly line. A standard convolutional layer works in 3 distinct stages. First, convolve. This is where our specialist kernels scan the input to find features and create those feature maps we saw. Second, activate. A function like ReLU acts as a filter here, deciding which of those detected features are strong and important enough to pass on. It basically turns up the signal and quiets the noise. And third, pool. We summarize the map to make it smaller and more manageable.
Let's look a little closer at that pooling step. The most common type is called max pooling, and it's incredibly simple. It just looks at a small window on the feature map and reports back the single strongest or maximum value. This does 2 really key things. First, it shrinks the data, which makes the next layer's job way easier. And second, it introduces a little bit of invariance. By summarizing a whole region down to one number, the network becomes less sensitive to the feature's exact pixel location, which makes it much more robust.
Okay, so you now understand the core mechanics. This is the stuff you find in textbooks. But to really be an expert, to ace that job interview, or to design a better model, you need to understand where this beautiful model starts to break down. So let's get into some advanced insights and limitations.
Here are 3 crucial things you have to know. First, CNNs are equivariant to translation, but they are not naturally good with rotation or scale. A kernel trained to find a cat's ear won't recognize that same ear if it's upside down. Second, parameter sharing isn't always the best idea. For very structured images like faces that are always centered, you might want a dedicated eyebrow detector for the top part of the image and a chin detector for the bottom. And third, the real magic happens when you stack these layers. The first layer finds edges, the next combines those into corners, the next into eyes and noses, until the final layers can see a complete face. It's a beautiful hierarchy of understanding.
To really cement your understanding, I want you to pause right here and try to answer these questions out loud. Don't just think them through. Actually say the answers as if you were in an interview. If you can clearly explain these concepts using the analogies we've talked about, then you have truly grasped the genius of CNNs.
And there you have it. The case is officially closed. The genius of CNNs was never about brute force. It's about 3 elegant, simple principles baked right into the architecture: local focus, parameter sharing, and the translation equivariance that comes from them. These ideas didn't just solve image recognition, they completely changed the course of artificial intelligence. Thanks for joining this explainer, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Now go build something amazing.